Some folks seem pretty upset over this Connecticut Sun sale situation. I can't say I am one of those folks that is pissed off about it, but here is some of the reaction that you've seen. Senator Richard Blumenthal, WNBA put a full court press on blocking the Sun from staying in Connecticut. Deeply harmful to fans that live and breathe basketball. DOJ should investigate and stop such anti-competitive interference. Look, let's unpack this for a second, right? So the Connecticut Sun, we're going to be sold to one of the owners of the Celtics, right? Like that was
the deal was signed. $325 million sat on the table. One of the most successful franchises in WNBA history was ready to pack its bags for Boston, backed by the prestige of the Celtics. Then, in a move that sent shockwaves through the entire sports world, the league stepped in and killed it. Just like that, the Connecticut Sun were left in a state of absolute chaos. Fans are reeling, politicians are demanding investigations, and the locker room is effectively shattered. This wasn't just a business transaction that fell through. It was a total collapse of trust between the franchise and the league headquarters.
Let's unpack this for a second, right? So the Connecticut Sun, we're going to be sold to one of the owners of the Celtics, right? Like that was agreed to. And that I get. Like Boston, WNBA team, Boston sports fans, region remains the same, even if it's a different location. Like, I understand, I guess, being pissed that didn't go down. As far as the Connecticut Sun themselves, I don't think that team had much juice relative to the rest of the league. Let's just be real about it. It was not a destination.
Everyone thought the deal was a slam dunk. Imagine the Connecticut Sun moving to a major market like Boston, owned by the same power players behind the Celtics. It seemed like the perfect evolution for a team that has consistently performed on the court, but struggled to find its footing off of it. The regional connection was already there, and the fan base was ready to embrace a new era of dominance in a world-class sports city. But behind closed doors, the WNBA leadership was sharpening their knives. They weren't about to let this sale happen on the owner's terms, and the fallout has been nothing short of a total disaster for everyone involved.
I don't think that team had much juice relative to the rest of the league. Let's just be real about it. It was not a destination. It was not one of those teams, you know, if you're another team, you get excited about playing, you're circling on the calendar. And the facilities were not up to par. They're sharing courts for kids' birthday parties and stuff like that. And in this new CBA, that's part of it, is making sure all the facilities are up to par. So just keeping it status quo, I get why that wasn't the case. Just even moving, you know, somewhere in Connecticut, Hartford.
The reason for the block? The league claims the Sun tried to skip the line. According to the WNBA Board of Governors, you can't just buy a team and move it wherever you want without following the established expansion process. They held firm, insisting that relocation decisions are their call, not the individual team owners. This created an immediate stalemate that has left the franchise in a state of limbo. The message from the top was loud and clear: if you want a team in Boston, you have to wait your turn. But for the people in Connecticut, this felt like a betrayal of the highest order, leaving the future of their beloved team hanging.
Essentially what they said. Sun ownership, however, initially reached a deal last summer to sell the team for a record $325 million, which, by the way, needs to be appreciated. I think that the price here is $300 million to go to Houston, to relaunch the Comets, which I haven't even mentioned up until this point. And there's some history there, of course. But just the fact that the Connecticut Sun are selling for upwards of $300 million is one of the surest signs of growth of the league that there's been, right? Like, I think they might have been bought for $10 million or something along those lines. That's an explosive growth.
Senator Richard Blumenthal didn't hold back his fury. He is calling for a full court press to stop the Sun from being ripped away from the fans who live and breathe basketball in Connecticut. He even went as far as suggesting that the Department of Justice should step in to investigate what he calls anti-competitive interference. When a United States senator starts talking about DOJ investigations over a basketball team sale, you know things have reached a boiling point. The political pressure is mounting, and the optics for the league are getting worse by the hour. It is no longer just about sports. It is a legal and public relations nightmare that is threatening to tear the league apart.
Surest signs of growth of the league that there's been, right? Like, I think they might have been bought for 10 million or something along those lines. That's an explosive growth. And it's one of the arguments I made going into the CBA as to how you can say, where the trajectory of the WNBA is headed beyond just simple revenue, net revenue, game in, game out, that kind of thing, the appreciating value of the franchises. But the WNBA make the case, and I think it's a solid case that they just try to skip the line. Okay, we buy the team, we move it here, but Boston hadn't put a bid in.
But let's look at the harsh reality of why this move was being pushed in the first place. The facilities in Connecticut are frankly an embarrassment for a professional team in this day and age. Reports have surfaced that the team has been forced to share courts with children's birthday parties. Imagine trying to run a professional practice while a bunch of kids are eating cake and running around in the next lane. In the new era of the WNBA, where players demand and deserve elite infrastructure, the Sun were being left behind in a major way. The status quo was no longer sustainable, and the ownership knew they had to get out of there to survive the league's new standards.
Case that they just try to skip the line. Okay, we buy the team, we move it here, but Boston hadn't put a bid in. Meanwhile, you've had other teams that have put bids in, that have gotten rewarded for doing so. WNBA effectively blocked the deal from progressing, holding firm that relocation decisions are made by the WNBA Board of Governors and not by individual teams, and that cities have already gone through the expansion process, which included Houston. Those cities have priority over Boston. And we know we're getting Cleveland. We know we're getting Philadelphia. Obviously, the tempo, Toronto and Portland are entering this year. And now you're going back to Houston. Now the cynic could...
The league's new CBA is a game changer, and it's part of the reason this sale turned so toxic. Part of the agreement is making sure all facilities are up to par with professional standards. If you can't provide a dedicated high-end environment for your athletes, you are essentially a liability to the league's brand. The Connecticut Sun simply didn't have the juice relative to the rest of the league. It wasn't a destination. It wasn't one of those teams that players circled on their calendars with excitement. Moving to Hartford was suggested as a compromise, but the ownership knew that only a major market move could trigger the kind of investment needed to fix these issues.
Over Boston. And we know we're getting Cleveland. We know we're getting Philadelphia. Obviously, the tempo, Toronto and Portland are entering this year. And now you're going back to Houston. Now the cynic could say it's the Fertitta family, right? And the NBA rewarding one of its own because of the Houston Rockets connection. The Sun will play one more season in Connecticut before relocating in 2027. So I sit on the side of, I understand why the Sun are being moved. I understand why this is happening.
The bombshell revelation that truly shattered the fan base was the price tag. The Sun were reportedly being sold for a staggering $325 million. To put that in perspective, teams in this league were being bought for $10 million not that long ago. This explosive growth is a sign that the WNBA is heading toward the stratosphere, but it also means the stakes are higher than ever. When that much money is on the table, the league is going to exercise absolute control over where that money goes. By blocking the Boston deal, the WNBA essentially told the owners that their record-breaking valuation didn't give them the right to bypass the rules.
It's connection. The Sun will play one more season in Connecticut before relocating in 2027. So I sit on the side of, I understand why the Sun are being moved. I understand why this is happening. I like the idea personally of a team in Boston more than a team in Houston, but the moral of the story is the demand. And you had teams that have put in for these bids, like Houston, and they're getting rewarded, and other teams wanting to get in.
Now the story takes an even more dramatic turn toward Houston. While the Boston deal was blocked for skipping the line, the league has reportedly pivoted to a $300 million deal to relaunch the Houston Comets. This has left fans in Connecticut feeling like they are being traded away for a ghost of the past. The Comets have a rich history, but for the current Sun fans, this feels like their team is being sacrificed to reward a different market that has already gone through the expansion process. It is a calculated move by the league to maintain the integrity of their expansion system, but it leaves a trail of broken hearts in New England that may never heal. The cynics are already pointing fingers at the NBA connection. The Houston Rockets ownership, specifically the Fertitta family, is deeply involved in this move. Some believe this is the NBA rewarding one of its own, using the WNBA as a piece in a much larger chess game. If the league is blocking a Boston deal just to hand a team to a powerful NBA family in Houston, the anti-competitive labels start to look a lot more accurate. It creates a narrative of favoritism that the WNBA really doesn't need right now, especially when they are trying to prove they are a fully independent and professional organization capable of making fair decisions for all markets. The timeline for this relocation is the final blow for the Connecticut faithful. The Sun will play one more season in their current home before the move in 2027. This creates a lame duck situation that is incredibly difficult for players, staff, and fans to navigate. How do you sell tickets and keep morale high when everyone knows the bags are already packed? The atmosphere in the arena is bound to be tense, filled with a mix of nostalgia and resentment. It is a slow-motion breakup that is being played out on a national stage, and it is going to be a long, painful road until that final whistle blows in Connecticut for the last time. The WNBA Board of Governors is holding firm on their stance that relocation decisions are theirs alone. They argue that cities like Cleveland, Philadelphia, Toronto, and Portland have played by the rules and deserve their shot first. By allowing the Sun to move to Boston outside of this process, they would be undermining years of work and negotiation with other potential owners. It is a classic battle between individual ownership rights and the collective power of the league. While the league may be technically correct in their process, the human cost of this decision is massive. A community that supported this team through the lean years is being told their loyalty doesn't matter. What makes this even more frustrating for fans is the missed opportunity for a Boston-based rivalry. Boston sports fans are some of the most passionate in the world, and bringing a WNBA team into that mix would have been electric. The regional rivalry with the New York Liberty alone would have sold out arenas and driven TV ratings through the roof. The league is always talking about growth and maximizing exposure, so blocking a move to a top-tier sports market like Boston seems counterintuitive to many. It feels like the league is prioritizing bureaucracy over the actual growth of the game, and that is a pill that many fans and analysts are finding very difficult to swallow. The locker room is where the real shattering is happening. Players are now faced with the reality of moving their lives to a different part of the country in just a couple of years. The uncertainty of who will stay and who will leave during this transition period is a major distraction. For a team that has been a consistent contender, this kind of off-court drama can ruin a championship window in an instant. The focus should be on basketball, but instead, every interview and every press conference is dominated by questions about the sale and the move. The chemistry that made the Sun a powerhouse is being tested in ways that no playbook can prepare them for. Let's talk about the appreciating value of these franchises. The fact that we are even talking about $300 million deals is a miracle compared to the league's financial state a decade ago. This trajectory is beyond just simple net revenue from game to game. It's about the massive value of the franchises themselves. The WNBA is finally being seen as a premium investment. However, this wealth is creating a divide. The older markets that don't have the shiny new arenas or the billionaire backers are being pushed out to make room for the new money. Connecticut is the first major casualty of this gold rush, and they likely won't be the last. The Houston Comets relaunch is a massive gamble for the league. They are banking on nostalgia and the existing infrastructure of the Rockets to make it work. Houston has a history of supporting the WNBA, but the league has changed significantly since the Comets last took the floor. If this move fails, the league will have destroyed a stable, albeit small, market in Connecticut for nothing. It's a high-stakes play that shows just how aggressive the WNBA is becoming. They aren't interested in just surviving anymore. They want to compete with the big boys, and if that means breaking a few hearts in New England, they seem perfectly willing to do it. The political fallout could actually lead to real consequences. Senator Blumenthal's call for a DOJ investigation isn't just empty rhetoric. If there is evidence that the league is unfairly restricting the movement of teams to protect certain interests or to favor specific owners, there could be legal ramifications that last for years. This could potentially open up the league's books and decision-making processes to public scrutiny in a way they never intended. What started as a simple team sale has evolved into a potential landmark case for sports law. The league might have won the battle to block the Boston move, but they might have started a war they aren't ready for. When you look at the expansion list, you see cities like Philadelphia and Cleveland waiting in the wings. These are massive markets with deep sports roots. The league's argument is that these cities have done the work, submitted the bids, and waited their turn. To let Boston jump to the front of the line because of a private sale would be a slap in the face to the investors in those other cities. The WNBA is trying to build a sustainable, long-term model, and that requires discipline. But try telling that to a fan in Uncasville who has been cheering for the Sun since day one. To them, the expansion process just sounds like a corporate excuse to steal their team. The facility issue cannot be overstated. In the modern WNBA, you cannot expect top-tier talent to play in a venue that doesn't offer the best training, recovery, and practice amenities. The fact that the Sun were sharing courts with kids' birthday parties is a clear sign that the Mohegan Sun era had reached its ceiling. As the league moves toward chartered flights and higher salaries, the physical environment of the team has to keep up. The move to Houston with the backing of the Rockets facilities will immediately put the franchise in the top tier of the league in terms of resources. It is a move for the players' benefit, even if the fans are the ones paying the price. The explosive growth of the WNBA is the real story beneath the surface. We are seeing a fundamental shift in how women's sports are valued and consumed. The demand for teams is at an all-time high, and that gives the league incredible leverage. They no longer have to settle for any owner who is willing to write a check. They can pick and choose the markets and the partners that align with their vision. Connecticut was a great home for a long time, but in the eyes of the league, it no longer fits the vision of a global, high-impact sports brand. It is a cold, hard business reality that is shattering the traditional bonds of sports loyalty. The 2026 season is going to be one of the most awkward years in the history of professional sports. Every home game will feel like a long goodbye. The players will have to balance their commitment to the fans with the reality that they will soon be wearing different colors in a different city. It is a last dance scenario, but without the celebratory feel. Instead, it will be overshadowed by the bombshell of the sale and the lingering questions about why the Boston deal was blocked. The Sun have always been a gritty, resilient team, and they will need every bit of that toughness to get through the next 2 years without falling apart completely. The moral of the story is that demand is driving everything right now. There are more people wanting to get into the WNBA business than there are spots available. This creates a situation where the league can be ruthless in its decision-making. If you aren't a major market with a state-of-the-art arena and a billionaire owner, your spot in the league is no longer guaranteed. The Connecticut Sun are the first example of what happens when a team's success on the court is overshadowed by the economic realities of a booming league. It is a cautionary tale for every small market franchise in professional sports. Ultimately, the Connecticut Sun sale is the story of a league outgrowing its roots. The move to Houston represents a return to a major market and a connection to the NBA's power structure, while the blocked Boston deal represents the league's desire to maintain total control over its expansion. The fans in Connecticut are left with the pieces of a shattered franchise, wondering where it all went wrong. They did everything right, but in the end, they couldn't compete with the lure of $300 million and the promise of a bigger stage. The bombshell has dropped, and the landscape of the WNBA will never be the same again. As we look toward 2027, the legacy of the Connecticut Sun will be remembered as one of the most successful but undervalued chapters in the league's history. They proved that a team in a non-traditional market could compete at the highest level and build a passionate following, but as the league moves into this new era of massive valuations and global ambitions, the Sun's story serves as a reminder that in professional sports, business always comes first. The fans will keep cheering for now, but the heart of the franchise has already been moved. The future is in Houston, and the sun is finally setting on a legendary era in Connecticut.